Hey everybody, so every season I make it my goal to pug my way into the top 1% of players, and in this video I want to share with you guys 5 things that I wish I knew before I started doing that. So these aren't going to be total noob tips like learn your rotation. These are going to be more like tips for people who've got a few keys under their belt and want to really up their Mythic Plus game. These have served me really well, and I hope they serve you well in your Mythic Plus journey. So number 1 is going to be mindset, because this is the point that everything else we talk about stems from. The goal of Mythic Plus is to time keys, obviously, but we all tend to get wrapped up in our healing and damage meters from time to time. Even among healers, there's a lot of talk about doing the most DPS and such. Let me make this perfectly clear, and I need this reminder from time to time myself as well. Healer DPS means very little unless you're pushing really high keys. As a healer, you're essentially a support class. Your job is to keep the group alive and put them in the best possible position to do their jobs as easily as they can. You aren't going to carry keys in a numbers sense, but you can carry a group through really solid and smart gameplay and essentially protecting them from all the dangers of the dungeons and affixes. Honestly, if that doesn't sound like fun to you, you might be playing the wrong role. Also, look, if you're going to pug for the majority of your keys, there are some things you're just going to have to come to terms with. You aren't going to time every key. People are absolutely going to make mistakes, so are you, by the way, all of which can be pretty frustrating, but you really need to approach each dungeon as an opportunity for you to get better at playing your spec and kind of let all that other stuff slide off you. If you start raging at your party in chat or taking part in toxic behavior, chances are the key's already bricked. It's easy to feel like you'd do better if you could just find better teammates, or that you deserve a better group than the one that you've got, but honestly, until you've proven that by timing a lot of keys, you just aren't there yet. Just reflect on what you could have done better, what was under your control, and forget about the rest. Not only will you improve better like this, but you'll have a much more fun time doing it. Okay, so for number 2, I want to talk about timers and warnings. As you move up key levels in Mythic Plus, you're going to need to be able to respond more and more quickly to incoming damage, and this is doubly true if you play a proactive healer such as Resto Druid or Disc Priest, where you need to start healing before the damage actually comes out. I recommend the add-on Little Wigs. DBM is great too, but I prefer Little Wigs because of how easy it is to customize. So it's as easy as downloading Little Wigs, typing /BW in game, going over here to dungeon bosses, and then, for example, we'll take Naku Defensive, we'll do the Raging Tempest, since this is a pretty intense healing fight. We want to make sure that we're aware of Electrical Storm, so we're going to go to that ability, we're going to click on the arrows next to it, we're going to make sure that it's emphasized so that we're really clear on when this is coming. We'll also go over here to Sounds, and we'll give it a custom sound to make sure that it's really obvious. Like, I don't know, for example, right now I have the boxing arena gong, because that makes it super obvious to me, like, hey, this ability is coming and it's time to get ready for it. That way, when I actually do this boss, I'll be 100% prepared to get my heals out when that ability is on its way. So here's what that looks like for me in game. So this also works the same way with trash. If there's a trash mechanic you really want to keep track of, like maybe Tectonic Slam and Ruby Life Pools, you can go to RLP here, click the drop down, go to trash, and then where we see Tectonic Slam, we could emphasize this if we want to. We can give it a custom sound to make it really obvious that it's time to like throw out a Thunderstrike or something to knock it up. And we can pick whatever custom sound we want and really help us keep track of things. When you know exactly when big damage is incoming, it gives you time to get set up with heals, shields, defensives, whatever your spec uses to keep people alive. If you're reacting in the moment, it becomes way harder to keep the group up. So number 3 is going to be your own best friend, and what I mean by this is the more damage you can prevent from going out in the first place, the less healing you have to do. Unfortunately, not all specs are created equal in this regard, but every single healing spec does have some things they can do to lock down enemies. Let's take a look at a couple examples. Resto Shaman has a number of ways to pull this off. First of all, most obviously, you have your kick wind shear. This is on a super low cooldown of 12 seconds, and you should really be trying to get the most kicks in a dungeon in order to make fun of your melee DPS or tank at the end of the run. In most cases, a healer with a longer CD kick like Evoker, for example, I prefer to hold my kick for really important casts to be 100% sure they don't go out. But being your own best friend isn't just about kicking, it's also about CCs and stops. So looking back on our shaman as an example, we have a couple more things we can do here. We have Capacitor Totem for an AoE stun on a minute cooldown, which will stun enemies and stop any unkickable or kickable casts that are about to go out. You've also got Thunder Shock on a 25-second cooldown, which will knock enemies up and accomplish essentially the same thing. So if you think about it, you're able to get at least 2 AoE stops out depending on the length of a pull, which is absolutely crazy. Not every spec is going to have that much control over a pack, but every spec does have something they can do to help themselves out. In a pug, especially a lower or maybe middle key level one, there's no guarantee that other players are going to do anything about dangerous casts going out, so you need to be proactive about using your CC. Seriously, treat them like you would any important cooldown and try to get the absolute most uses out of them as you can. Next up is do the dirty work, and here we're specifically talking about affixes. The unfortunate reality of being a healer is that you're expected to interact with the affixes more than anyone else, and a disproportionate amount of affix responsibility falls on your shoulders. Spare GCDs that are usually used for damage are sadly just more expendable than DPS or tanks extra GCDs. Don't ignore affixes, as they are a huge factor in deciding whether or not your group is going to time a key. Make sure you're spec'd into your knockback and that it's keybound on a sanguine week. Be proactive about using slows and stuns on the ghosts on a spiteful week, soothe if you can on raging week, all that jazz. This will allow your DPS and tank to do their jobs more effectively, and once again, reduce the overall amount of healing you need to do because of damage taken from affixes. It's always kind of silly when a healer complains about the amount of damage their group's taking from affixes, but they aren't really doing anything to help them out. Don't be that guy or gal. The last one is a tricky one because it's not really a gameplay thing, but it's dealing with healing anxiety. A lot of people ask me about this on stream, and I get it. It can be intimidating to heal a key that's higher than what you're used to, and as a healer, you definitely feel the pressure of keeping people alive. You may feel like you're letting someone down if a player dies, or maybe even get raged at by your group. I also know that just saying, just get in there and don't worry about it, isn't going to help anyone who feels this way. So here are some things that maybe will help. First of all, everyone screws up. I screw up all the time right here on my stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 9 p.m. on YouTube in front of a whole bunch of people in pretty high keys. I've been raged at before for sure, both rightfully and wrongly, but here's an interesting thing. I've literally never encountered those players again. The WoW player base is surprisingly big. Just pop them on ignore and move on. There's a 99% chance you will never see them again. Another thing, if you move up in keys gradually once things start to get challenging for you, the increase in difficulty will be gradual as well. For example, a 20 doesn't feel like it's twice as hard as a 19, just slightly harder. So take baby steps. Don't get intimidated by milestone numbers like a 15 or a 20 or whatever. They aren't that much harder than the one right before it. You can also look for runs with complete or chill in the title and kind of use those as practice runs, as those people aren't usually too concerned with timing. Just beware that they may also make more mistakes or be less geared than what you would be getting otherwise. In the end though, as Michael Scott once said that Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and if you really want to time, say, a 20 for example, you're eventually going to have to put yourself out there and do it. Just remember that the worst thing that can really happen is you wipe, and you have to try again with another group. No big deal. So I hope these tips serve you guys well in your Mythic Plus journey. If you guys enjoyed the video, I always appreciate a thumbs up on it. Subscribe to see more of my content in the future. Check out my stream here on YouTube Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 9 p.m. Pacific. We have lots of fun healing keys on all sorts of different specs. Great place to ask questions too. If you got any questions for me, I'd love to see you guys there. Until next time, happy healing everybody.